Been kind of interesting, right? April, we had 30 inches of snow. And today it's May, end of May, we have 100-degree heat. And so if you don't believe it, this year it probably is going to come true. That's right, Christmas in July. My goodness, it's just been a strange year. But that's all right. It's all good. It's all good. I wanted to talk to you. We're starting a new sermon series this week. The sermon series is on the book of Genesis, and we did not get the little emblem up, but you'll see it next week. It's summer stories on the book of Genesis. Well, for the next 8 times that I preach, I'll be gone one Sunday, and I'm not going to saddle my replacement with my own sermons or with my own ideas. But for the next 8 times that I preach here, we will be going through the stories in the book of Genesis. And I got this idea from, of all people, John Legend's wife. Chrissy Teigen is her name. Teigen, did I say that right? Anybody know? Teigen, I did say it right. So John Legend, on Easter Sunday, John Legend was the star in Jesus Christ Superstar. And he played the part of Jesus. Did some of you see it? It was really a good production, I thought. I was quite amazed. The guy that did it a number of years ago, back in the 70s, he had a bigger range, but John did a beautiful job, as did all the rest of them. So Chrissy decides one day that she's going to show up at one of the rehearsals. This is John's wife, and she said. In a tweet, she said, John said that there would be leopards in the production. And then she said, I guess that's lepers. I'm not very good with the Bible. That's what she said. It's leopards in the production. I guess it's lepers. I'm not very good with the Bible. And, I got to thinking about that, and I started listening to my own congregation. And I've heard, since that time, I've heard a number of people say, I just don't know the Bible all that well. I don't know the stories of the Bible very well. And, that's not a reflection on the people who say those things. That's a reflection on the preacher, right? Because the preacher is the one who tells the stories. If I'm not telling you the stories, how in the world would you possibly know them? So we need to keep these stories and actual telling of the stories alive and well. And what better place to start than in the book of Genesis? Because if you want, the book of Genesis is really kind of 2 stories, but mainly it's a book about a family. It's the family of Abraham. And, if you have this idea that the Bible is about perfect people, well, just crack it open and start in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and start reading. You're good in chapter 1. You're pretty good in chapter 2. It goes downhill very quickly when you get to chapter 3, and you actually find out what these people are like. They put the fun in dysfunction, all right? Every single one of them. These people are in the Bible not because they're paradigms of virtue, and not because they're perfect people, but because God loves them. And he loves them in spite of the fact that they live these messy, sinful lives. And if you thought your life was a mess, I've got a whole book called Genesis of You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And so we're going to be talking about that, but before we do, let's just start at the very beginning, because the first couple of chapters of Genesis is absolutely beautiful, and it's the story of creation. Many of you have heard it, right? And we talked about it on Wednesday, and what we're going to do is on Wednesday night we're going to do not a preview but a mini sermon on the stories that will be coming up the following Sunday. So last week we talked about creation. And we talked about the fact that the creation story in the book of Genesis is not a how book. It's not a why book. It's not in the beginning there was a big bang. It's a who book. In the beginning, it says, in the beginning, God. In the beginning, God created. But I do want to talk today, I'm going to break my rule. I do want to talk about how God creates, according to the Bible. All right? because I think it's fascinating. It's not what you might think it would be. When you start talking about how, you want to know mechanically how things work. It's not that kind of book. But what it says, and if you take a look at the verbs, and I'll show you, I got my Bible out. I didn't use the official one that we use here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I have highlighted as many of the verbs as I could possibly find, and I color-coded them, okay? Which it's kind of fun to do, especially in this particular book. So let's see, God created, God said, that's in green. God saw, that's in purple. And God called, that's in yellow. And all throughout this entire first chapter, God sees, he says, he speaks, he creates, he calls, and then he evaluates. All right? So at the very beginning it says, God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. He made an evaluation. It was good. And it's all, if you want to talk about how, it's about the power of words. And if you want to talk about how, it's about relationships. The Bible's all about relationships. It doesn't care so much about how and why. It cares about who God is and who you are in relationship to God. Okay, so it says the first day it says that there was light. The second day was land and water. The third day is day and night, and the sun, moon, and stars. The fourth, that's the fourth day. The fifth day are the critters that come. And by the way, there's a change in language. There's a new verb. He sees, he speaks, and then when it comes to critters, he blesses. Okay, it says, and God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply. He gives them a purpose. Isn't that cool? And it's relationship. Top to bottom, it's all about relationship. And then we get to the sixth day. And of course, he said, and he saw, and he blessed humans. And they weren't just good, they were very good. My friends, bottom line here is that words have power. They have the power to create. They have the power to build up. They have the power to bring into existence entire universes. Imagine this. The God of all creation, a God so large that with a single word, he can put this whole thing into motion, this entire universe. What is it? 12.7 billion light years from one end to the other with a single word. And he blesses these tiny, insignificant creatures, you and me. And we're not just good in God's eyes. We are very good. Let's sing. So yesterday, Joe and I went to Sioux City, which is where I'm from, and met up with my mom and dad. Mom didn't go with; she's been, a little under the weather. But Dad went, and we went to all the grave sites that we have from our families. And I don't know, we must have visited 20, 25 graves, something like that. And we do this every year, and I do it because I know it's important to Dad. But As the day wore on, as the morning wore on, I realized it wasn't just about Dad, it was also for me. I was thinking, it'll be a few years from now, but there'll be a time when I won't have a reason to go over because Dad needs to go to the graves. And I'm going to guess that I'm going to go over because I need to go over to those graves. I visited all those people. Great aunts and uncles, my grandparents on both sides, aunts, uncles, people that I've known, people I didn't know, my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother. But of the people I knew, I thought about it, and the reason they're so important to my life. And the reason they're so important, I think, is because I grew up with lots and lots of good words that surrounded me. I cannot think of a time when these people tore me down with words. They always, always, always built me up. Now, did some of them get angry with me from time to time? Yeah, they sure did. Did they speak some cross things to me? Yeah, they did. But it was always within the context of these positive, life-giving words, and they encouraged me, and they built me up, and they told me, Dave, no matter what, you belong to me, and that's a good thing, and you are a good person, and I love you, and I care for you, and even if you mess up sometimes, it doesn't matter because you belong to the family. You're part of who we are, who I am. I think about Aunt Leva. I think about Uncle Mart and his fishing. I think about Uncle Tom, who was sort of the patriarch of the family, and my grandmothers on both sides. I think about all of those people, and man, they knew how to raise a child, and who I am, both good and bad, is a product of that. And I'm telling you this because I'm going to guess that you have had the same experience I've had with important people in my life, at least in some measure. There has been, the people who have been important in your life are the ones who built you up, who cared about you, and they showed that care by the way they spoke to you. Words are powerful. Words are powerful in the opposite way as well. Words can tear down. Words can destroy. So if you take a child, and teachers know this really, really well, if you take a child and you tell that child, you know what, you are stupid. You're an idiot. You couldn't think your way through anything. You're terrible. And you keep sending that message to that child time and time and time again, guess what's going to happen? That child is going to become what you've told him or her, she or he is. It's going to become stupid. It's going to become terrible. It's going to be beat down. Words are powerful. By the same token, if you look a child in the eye and you tell them unconditionally, I love you, I care about you, there is nothing more important in the world than you, and you are beautiful, and you are smart, and you are intelligent, that child will become what you call that child. Words matter. What we say about each other matters. More powerful than the largest armies in the world are the power of the words that come from your mouth. Let's sing. The creative power of words, it starts with God. And for some of you, I know it's true that you have had lots and lots of people in your life who have used destructive words, and they have named you, and they have called you those things, and they have torn you down. The world is like that. I don't know why it is, but it is. The world has a way of tearing us down. And the people around us have a way of tearing us down. And so this enterprise begins with God, which is why church is so important. Because if you hear it no place else, you need to hear it here. And you will hear it here every time you walk in the door. God loves you. God thinks you are the most special, the most important, the most beautiful thing in the universe. Get that one down, because every other message that you get from the world, if it tears you down, it's a lie. Someone asked me just this last week, what's a true word and what's a false word? What's a true prophecy? What's a false prophecy? It's very simple. If it speaks love and if it builds you up, or if it's spoken in love and it builds you up, it is directly from God. If it tears you down, it is of the devil. Do not believe the lies of this world. And I know we get them all the time from all different places. We are told we're not good enough. We're told we're not bright enough. We're told we're not this. We're told we're not that. Don't believe it. Don't believe it for a second. God loves you. God loves you because he created you. And he sees in you pure potential. Never let that one go. So it starts with God, and then it moves to our families. And goodness knows, I do not know why we talk to our families the way we do sometimes. It's so easy to tear each other down. So easy. I don't know why we do it, but we do. Measure your words carefully in your families. Remember that every time you open your mouth and speak to your child, your spouse, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, every time you open your mouth, you are shaping who that person is. Remember where it starts. With God, who first loved you and said you're the most important thing in the universe. And then share that message with the people with whom you are closest, your family. It doesn't stop there. It goes to the workplace. And it goes here in church. I don't know if you all know it or not, but Allie Merrill started working here on Monday. Oh my goodness, is she going to be fun. We got to talking, and she had some ideas about what the summer program is going to look like. We're going to be doing some youth programming here this summer. And at first it was sort of looking like, Kick on steroids. You all know what Kick is? That's the Wednesday program. But we got to talking, and we said, how do we get kids in the building? And then we started talking about scheduling. We didn't really have a good answer for how we're going to get them in the building. But we started talking about scheduling and said, well, there's no summer school this summer. They canceled it. There's not enough money. And I said, well, what do they do in summer school? Well, they teach reading and math. I tell you, it was Shelley and Allie and I, and as soon as those words were spoken, hit the air, all three light bulbs went on at once. So we are going to have a summer math and reading program here at First Lutheran Church this summer. And we are going to need all hands on deck, and yes, that means you, okay? If you can read, you can do this. Actually, let me take that back. Two things. If you can read and you have the capacity to love a child, you can do this. And there is not a person in the room who fails those two tests. I am hoping that we will have 150 kids in here every Monday and every Thursday. And no, you don't have to be here every Monday and every Thursday. You can sign up for one time for the entire summer. I don't care. We just need to have hands on deck. Because you're going to be teaching reading, and you're going to be teaching math. And you're going to have an 18-year-old who's going to be your boss. But you're going to be creating young people who will know by the end of the summer that not only does the God of all creation love them, but there's someone else on this planet who does as well. And for some of those kids, sad as it is, it may be the only place that they hear that. Bring them on. And yes, this is a calling to you. God has spoken a word of promise and hope in your lives. A word that has created you into the beautiful people you are. Let us share that word with everyone we meet, with family, friends, with coworkers, and this summer with the children who walk through our door. Thanks be to God. Amen.